Welcome to the Practical Pistol Show. I'm Matt Hopkins. We're here to answer your shooting questions. Today we have USPSA President Mike Foley, GM, what's he call you? Grandmaster Nick.
Grandmaster Nick, I think.
All right, yeah. Grandmaster Nick.
Hello, guys.
And Mr. Hoser Tim Myers, right?
Howdy.
All right, today we're going to be answering your shooting questions. If you have any questions you want to send in, email bensteger@gmail.com, and we'll answer them on upcoming shows. The first question is, when you're trying to determine your growth as a shooter, by analyzing the results of your local club matches, where there is not an abundance of high-level shooters in your division, what's the best way to compare your results against skilled shooters in different divisions? So basically, the local dudes, there's like one guy there. He's asking how he compares his skill level to like and he's shooting production. How he compares it to a limited shooter.
So
Nick,
I wouldn't.
On that?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily do anything different. So I kind of do the same exact thing. So I shoot a lot of club matches, and I think I get a few different things out of those, but. One of the things that I like to do is compare myself to local kind of M-class open shooters, which are, I'm fairly competitive with them. Depends on the exact guy, but it's challenging for me to beat them. So, but I don't really do anything different than I would if I was comparing myself to like a, production shooter. I'm looking at the time and the points and the different kind of movements that are going on there. So I don't really do anything differently based on the division. Do you guys agree with that, or would you do something different that I'm not thinking of?
Go ahead, Mike.
Well, to me it depends on what scoring tool they use, because if they're using USPSA and it's uploaded, or if they're using Practice Score and I can go in there and see how many alphas a guy shot, how many Bravos, how many Charlies, how many Deltas, what penalties he had, then I can cross compare the same accuracy results. As far as the speed goes, if I'm shooting single stack or production, somewhere I'm going to have to reload, I like to compare my times to the open shooters that are one level back, like Nick was talking about. And so for me, if I'm shooting against a high A or low M open shooter and I'm shooting single stack, I really should be with him on time, unless there's a distinct different way of running the stage, and there seldom really is. Maybe one position's difference here or there, but if I can stay ahead of them on time and not give up the points, then that's a pretty good at the match comparison. After the match, though, it's really about how many of the total points did you get and what was your time. I mean, not much else to it, is there?
Not really.
Yeah.
Tim Myers, you got anything?
No, I don't compare myself to open shooters much, mainly limited shooters. We have a fair number of M and GMs at my club, whether it be production, limited, or open, so I don't really worry about open guys too much, but if I don't have any production heat, I just look to the M and GMs and limited and try to stay on pace with them as much as I can.
That makes sense. So here's my take on it is you want to find the dude that's most consistent at your club. So even if he's a limited, open, doesn't really matter. It could be a production dude, and you're shooting open or limited. Find the dude that's most consistent and compare your percentage against him. So like this dude is going to shoot the same no matter what. He's going to shoot the same match, same points always, no matter what match it is or what he's getting ready for. So like if you're shooting 90% of him, and you eventually start shooting equal with him, I'd say that's probably a skill improvement, and it's also a metric you can look at, barring no issues or anything. And then another thing is all the guys on your squad you can look at. So like if an open dude is on your squad and you're shooting production, you can see how much like difference in the stage plan was and take that away from the overall performance. If he's that much better. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess kind of. I just wanted to circle back and clarify one thing, I guess. So I don't really. I think people in other divisions make more. They're better just kind of benchmark rather than having you try to break down every little bit of your stage run against theirs, because they are going to be doing different reload points, or shooting these targets at a different rate if they're major power factor or whatever. So I use it more as a time reference as to probably where I should be, and then I kind of look at my own match video and I try to I like to think I should know what a good draw looks like, what a good reload for me looks like, what a good movement looks like. So I'm reviewing mostly my own details. I'm just using the other guys as a point of reference.
Yeah, I don't think you should compare strictly how they shot the targets to you. I'd just if you're on the same squad with them, you can see if the stage plan dictated or there was that much difference in time between an open and a production dude running it. Say you had to 30 rounds from one spot, the open dude's gonna have way more time on you no matter what.
Yeah.
So
in that case,
on that.
In that case, though, let's say he shot 30 rounds from one spot, just like 2 pivots or whatever.
Yeah.
Then what I would look to do is analyze the amount of time that I had to do the 2 reloads in those pivots versus what just the pivot would be. And so if the pivot was a quarter second and a pivot with a reload was a full second, then I should be a second and a half back of him. I mean, so there's ways to analyze those things if you're really looking for the cross comparison. Total time is a statistic that I've been paying a lot of attention to lately because USPSA totals that up for you in the individual results, and I think the new practice score does too. And so you can look at, okay, I shot 180 seconds for this 10-stage match, and the guy I'm comparing myself to, he shot 172, and so where are those 8 seconds? And then you go back stage by stage and find them.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And if he has a video, then you can cross compare. I recently put up 3 videos, and I put my actual stage performance for each of those videos up with them, just so that there was a benchmark for anybody else who might look at it. And so they would see that I was 93% on a stage, which put me in 5th place. But it also had how many points I had and what my time was, so that the video had a little more meaning than just how I flowed through the stage.
Makes sense. I think it's a good key to do that. If you have video from the same match, just compare your video to theirs, and that you can get a lot of the time breakdown off of that. So a lot of major matches post, a lot of different shooters post video. You can video yourself, or if you don't have video yourself, you can actually see how they're running through the stages. Any glaring mistakes or holes you don't see in there, you can look off that. All right. Anything else on that one?
I think that would do it.
What'd you do when you were coming up, Nick? You just look at yourself and didn't compare against anybody else?
No, I did. I did pretty much the same thing from the start. I guess I would try to, when I was more of a B, A class kind of guy, I had a little bit more local production competition on a more frequent basis. So I'd look a little harder, right against those guys. Now, like I said, I kind of go outside the division of the club match for kind of direct comparisons to competitively. So yeah, just I guess the biggest change would just be the overall score that's likely to happen of the shooters around me. But like Mike said, I definitely look at all the details stage by stage, look at time and points for myself, and then the people I'm comparing myself to for that match.
All right, let's hit another question real quick. Guy writes in, I'm a super senior and I've been shooting Steel Challenge for about 8 months. I practice 2 times a week at short range where I can set up scaled down Steel Challenge stages. I'll set up stages and other targets set up for drills. I've made some good progress in practice, much higher hit percentage, better hits on steel, and much more aware where my sights are when the gun goes bang. I can almost call my shots in practice. I'm not trying for speed, but want consistent performance. And then he goes on, I've shot maybe 15 matches. I'm not trying to beat anyone, not shooting with my friends, but I'm trying to improve before they plant me. Any tips on making the transition to match performance? More matches, laminated check sheet, more detailed mental rehearsal in the box. I guess he's asking if those are good examples. it may boil down to the lack of distraction during practice versus a match, like folks are talking in the background, RO hovering, shots ringing in the background. Any and all advice welcome. What do you guys think?
So is he saying he's currently having a problem transitioning from practice to a match?
Sounds like he's actually doing better in practice than matches at this point. And it's Steel Challenge, you pretty much have a time, and you basically know which one's better without all the hit factor and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So how do you translate better match performance to equal your practice performance?
So one thing that kind of maybe worth visiting on. So he said he's shooting scaled down Steel Challenge stages in practice.
Yes.
Right. So if there's any way, and I guess maybe if there was, he'd already be doing this. But in Steel Challenge, I would try to shoot probably the exact stage, or at least something at the real distances in practice, if I wanted to translate that one for one. And this just goes to a little thing that it's kind of my own personal opinion, but like even when I'm just dry firing, if I have targets that are, scaled down targets that are, say 5 yards away, it helps to an extent seeing the front sight there, but it's still, to me, I still think that if you have the opportunity to shoot on targets a real distance, it's better just due to the fact that your visual plane of focus then has to change a real amount. And to me, that makes a difference. So first thing I do is try to practice at longer range at the real distances, even if it's even if you don't have pieces of steel that are perfect size or whatever. That's one thing I'd probably start trying to do. But I'm not sure if this guy's talking more about he's had more trouble dealing with the pressure, I guess, of a match situation, or if he's has some deficiency in his practice. Do you get a sense of that, I guess?
I think he's just trying to improve his match performance equal to his practice performance. I think that's what he's trying to go at. Any tips on that, or anything that you've noticed in your practice that would do that?
Biggest thing for me is I try to practice harder than I'm going to see in a match. So I think it's probably mostly about confidence at that point. Like if you're having a hard time taking your practice performance to a match and kind of replicating it, it's got to be a confidence issue at that point. So I think you're always probably going to lose. Obviously, you're going to lose a little bit off your max practice performance taking it to a match. I think that's going to apply to anybody. So you got to get, if you're going to shoot, you want to shoot like 80% of your absolute maximum performance in a match. Just pick a number off a tree there. I'm going to try and increase my max performance. So I'm going to try and do something that's really hard in practice. And then when I go to a match, the shots all look close and easy, and I'm really confident that I can do everything that is required there.
All right, Mike, you have
Probably
anything
the
on
biggest
this?
thing.
I do. I often practice on 6 and 8 inch steel targets. When I go to a steel challenge match, they're all 10s and 12s and the big rectangles, right?
Yeah.
I know there are differing opinions on this, but for me, if I can do what's necessary to shoot the stage in the same time on the 8s and the 6s as I can in a match on the 10s and the 12s, then I can really lean on those fifth runs and sometimes gain a little advantage. I will never shoot my first 4 runs at maximum practice speed, and there's never any reason to, because it's consistency that wins that match. It's never the guy with the highest or with the lowest time out of 5. It's the guy with the most consistent 4 out of 5. And this guy sounds to me like that he's got a little bit of pressure on him in the match, whether it's performance anxiety or whether it's comparing himself to other people versus comparing his own times to his benchmark runs. That there's some additional pressure there, and if you can remove that pressure by simply walking up to that match with the same exact mental preparation that you do in your practice, I mean, you can't make the other competitors go away. You can't make the RO go away. I mean, it's not like you can run up there and run yourself and record your times and mail it in. So you're going to have to deal with that pressure. And different people deal with it different ways. It's never really been a big problem for me, but I do acknowledge that it exists.
All right, Tim Myers, you got anything on this?
I have nothing to contribute on this.
You shoot as good in matches as you do in practice?
As poorly, yes.
Okay. All right, that makes sense. One thing I would add is I think he needs to get his arousal up in the practice equal to that of the match. So like get in there and make him have a penalty, make him have a, like if he doesn't hit this, he's gonna have a penalty, or like a what do they call it? Like a punishment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Matt Hopkins' program for arousals and punishments.
There we go, dude.
That's the title, man.
All right.
Yeah, that's your book, Matt. Right
there we go.
It'll probably be a bestseller until they figure out it's about shooting.
That's all that matters, right? So, I mean, I think the guy needs to get out there and shoot some more matches. If he's only shot 15 matches so far, that's probably not even less than a year shooting Steel Challenge. So I think he's pretty fairly new, and just seeing his performance in matches, it's going to take a little time, I think. But one thing I would do is definitely introduce some punishment in there in your practice to amp up your arousal curve.
Like miss a piece of steel, eat a dog biscuit or something like that.
Yeah, definitely. Or do whatever makes you like it has to personally affect you. I can't come up with an idea that will personally affect you.
I'd rather you not even try.
All right, good.
So one other thing I don't think I mentioned earlier, but I can't remember if this is a Lanny Basham thing or not, but I read this somewhere, and it's worked pretty well for me. There's not space in your head for you to really think about more than one thing at a time, right? So as your run is coming up, all you're doing is visualizing your run. And if you're doing that, you can't think about anything else. You can't think about the people that are around watching you or, screwing it up. You're visualizing a positive outcome. You're seeing your sights on target, transition. That's all you're thinking about, mental repetition. And for me, that helps block everything else out right in that moment.
Very good point. I'd say that is a Basham thing, so he talks about that in his book a little bit. So as long as you keep a positive thought in your head and nothing negative creeping in, you're not going to have any negative connotations coming to that.
Brian Enos used to talk about, can we say Brian Enos? Do I get a penalty for that or anything?
No, that's fine.
He used to talk about clearing your mind at the line, and the way that he would do it is he would think about this spot under the pit of his stomach. I mean, it's one of those crazy Zen techniques of Brian's. And I attempted that early on in my shooting career. I would get up there and I would have my plan. I could turn around with my eyes closed and vision it. I knew where everything was. I had all my footwork down. And when I got to the line, I would make that attempt to think about some inanimate object or some inanimate place and listen for the beginning of the buzzer. I seldom even think about it that way anymore. I get up there and just, let's listen for the beginning of the buzzer. But
I think it's something you'll develop over time. Once you become more comfortable with matches and hearing the buzzer and all the people around and hearing the steel, I think it's definitely a comfort thing, especially since guys only shot 15 matches, which I think that's probably, and Steel Challenge could be a weekly thing, so that could only be as little as 4 months of shooting. So I think that definitely is where I'm at with it.
Good on him for seeking the improvement at this stage.
Yeah, definitely.
And for making the effort and trying to get better, because it's obvious that he's making that effort here.
Yeah. All right, ready for another question?
Let's do it.
All right, this one will be good for Nick here.
Oh boy.
All right, it's hot, it's humid, you're wiping the sweat out of your eyes consistently. Now your hands are wet and slippery. What do you do before stage to be able to grip a gun? Do you LeBron James style throw it up in the air or apply some powder or lotion?
Oh man, so I'm.
Yeah, Nick, this is a good one for you.
Yeah, I am unique here. I LeBron James it, man. So I use Pro Grip So I do 3 things to keep my hands dry. First of all, Pro Grip kind of repels sweat, keeps you from sweating. So I put on Pro Grip beginning of the day. And then I just carry around a towel in my bag. I could never go to a match without a towel. So usually I got 2 towels. So I got one for like gear and one for sweat because I don't want to wipe sweat onto my gear. So I got one that I just keep my hands dry, and then also, I personally go through a lot of baby powder. I'm the only guy I've ever seen that does that. But to me, Pro Grip is honestly a little bit too grippy. So when I actually grab the gun and I'm kind of working my grip out of the holster, I like to have just a tiny little bit of slip available for me to kind of correct my grip on the way up. And if I just lathered in Pro Grip, I don't really have that. So I just baby powder it, and that helps keep the hands dry. It gives me just that tiny little bit of slip that I like, and that's how I do it.
Dude, this guy uses so much baby powder. How much do you use a year?
I go in the summertime. I go through one of the big bottles every month.
Every month, a whole bottle of baby powder.
So in the off season, when it's I don't go through it as much when it's cold. So when I'm not sweating, I don't go through it nearly as much. Like one bottle will probably do me for the winter time. But.
All right, Mike, you do anything special?
I used to use Pro Grip to a great extent. I still keep it in the bag. I rarely even use it anymore. When I do, I use a very sparing amount because I want a little bit of slippage. I want to be able to manipulate and maneuver the gun in my hand for reloads and all of those kinds of things. I don't have such a reach that I can get a firing grip on most guns and reach all the controls. Neither does Rob, for example. So for me, I don't want to be glued to the gun. I want a little bit of slippage, a little bit of Pro Grip. If I'm in a situation where I don't have Pro Grip, I can pick up some gravels or rocks, roll them around in my hands, toss them back down, wipe them off on my pants. That'll usually be, a temporary solution. It's seldom that I ever feel like that I'm so wet that I can't grip the gun. So I don't know if this changes, based on climate or if it changes based on the shooter. But I'm using less and less products over time for that. Maybe I'm just not even thinking about it.
All right, Tim, you're up. Anything?
I pretty much only use Pro Grip when it's crazy humid. So when I'm down in Houston or something, when the humidity's really high or if it's raining, I will use it. But I'm kind of with these guys. I like a little bit of slippage to be able to correct a bad grip out of the holster. Or even with mags, I've had that too, where I put on too much Pro Grip and I grab a mag and it just doesn't release at the right time. So unless it's raining or crazy humid, I don't really use anything.
All right, I'll second Nick's opinion on this. I don't use baby powder, but you must have a towel at the match. And if you're like going to an all-day match, you might have 2, one for the morning, one for the afternoon, because eventually that towel will get soaked up with sweat, especially down in Florida where the Nationals are coming up. It was bad, and plus it's probably going to rain no matter what, so you're going to need it. Yeah. And I use Pro Grip no matter what. So I have Pro Grip on my hand at all times, no matter what time of year it is. So I use it like fall, winter, summer, spring, everything. And I actually do it in practice too. So when I'm actually practicing, I'll put Pro Grip on just so I have the same feel and everything on that.
Yeah, I do the same thing in practice, dry fire, year-round. I always do the same thing.
Yeah. Mike, any other tips or tricks on this?
I'm with you guys on the towel. It's a must. A golf towel with that little clip will clip on that little D-ring on your range bag, clip one at each end, have 2 different colors. I like to wipe the magazines off, especially when they come off the ground, and I don't want to use that one to wipe my face or my hands on. So 2 towels is a really solid tip there. I think that this is probably a personal. How much to use. I see people at the range, their hands are totally white. They're like a mime. Let me out of this box. But
Tim, you sell this Pro Grip. What do you sell the most of?
Have you guys tried Liquid Grip before?
I've tried it. It makes your hands incredibly white and doesn't come off.
Yeah, so basically, there's certain people like Nick who like a lot of products, I suppose, and they like that stuff. I mean, Pro Grip's more popular, but some people have definitely gotten used to or prefer the liquid grip. It is thicker. It stays on longer. I don't know. That's just personal preference. But Pro Grip's kind of king.
Is it physically any different? So Pro Grip is basically some kind of powdery substance, whatever it is, suspended in alcohol gel. The alcohol just kind of evaporates off after you apply it.
Yeah.
Is liquid grip the same kind of thing, or is it different?
It's thicker. I mean, it's definitely different. The consistency is different for sure. It comes out more like a lotion. I don't know. Pro Grip's pretty thin. I mean, pretty opaque, and liquid grip's not. I mean, it's pretty thick.
Fundamentally, it's kind of the same concept.
Same idea. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, just the Pro Grip is thicker. Or the liquid grip.
Anybody ever tried chalk or resin or anything like that?
I've seen people at local matches that carry around a resin bag like a pitcher has on the mound, I guess. Yeah, I've never tried it because I don't want to put something on my hand I'm not familiar with in the middle of a match.
You could be letting that tenth get away. Was that 0.1% get away, Nick?
Could be, man. Could be.
All right. Anything else on this one, guys?
I wonder how much the availability of certain products increases the awareness and the use of it. Pro Grip, for example, that you can get from almost anybody in our industry who sells to the shooting public. For example, if you're getting recoil springs from a place, you can also pick up the Pro Grip there. Versus the awareness and the availability of the other products, I'm guessing there's not a tremendous difference in them. I know the Eric Graffel and some of those guys use a different one that's big for the tennis scene, but when you rub it on your hands, it smells and looks like Pro Grip. So
I think that's Prince's.
Yeah, Prince Grip
in a green bottle.
It's perfectly identical to Pro Grip.
Yeah.
Just a different label on the bottle. That's it.
Yeah. All right, I think we've pretty much covered that. If you want to get a hold of Tim Myers, it would be, what would it be, Tim?
benstoker@gmail.com if you have any complaints. If there's anything nice, shopping at Ben Stoker Pro Shop.
There you go. Mike Foley, how would we get a hold of you?
You probably won't in the next few months. Walk up to me at the range. Now, I've got Facebook, 2 different Facebook pages, and you can always reach me at MikeFoleyUSA@gmail. If you have a direct question or something you want to email me.
All right. Nick can be found on Facebook. Do you want to get your email out there?
Okay. No, it's complicated. I have a long last name.
Find Nick on Facebook. You can reach me at hopkinsshooting.com. Sorry, I messed up.
I don't even know you.
All right. And if you want to get a hold of Ben and you have any other more shooting questions, bensteger@gmail.com.